Hello and welcome back to Hustlin' with Holly. I'm your host, Holly Hustle. Anyways, today I'm going to be walking you through my university/college experience as best I can. The reason that I decided to do so is because honestly, I always find it somewhat helpful when people tell me why or why they didn't choose a traditional route, especially when it pertains to their future plans or where they ended up and why. So I thought that I would talk about my college/university experiences from start to finish as best I can. And this is not me trying to convince you to go to school. This is not me necessarily advocating for you to drop out of school. I'm not really trying to sell you anything, but I like it when people have this kind of conversation with me, especially when it's a very niche conversation in regard to being like it's just about something in particular, like college or relationships or something that we all go through. And it's just honestly, it's always nice to get opinions from other people, but again, you need to realize that while people give you their advice or opinions, that's all it really is, because honestly, you need to assess your own life and analyze what's going on there and kind of make your own decisions or your best guess. And that's what I think opinions and advice is honestly for, because a lot of people give you their opinion or a good piece of advice like it's fact. And although we would like to believe that what we are saying is extremely important all the time, and some of it may be, but like not everything is like fact or cap, if you know what I mean. If you don't, then you might want to look that up. So this is just me talking. Take it as you will, take it as you won't. I don't know where to start, where to even begin. I started college in 2019, the end of the school year. So I graduated in June 2018. So I went fall of 18 and, spring of 2019. I lived in a really small town. I've lived in smaller, but basically I was living in Eastern Washington, Tri-Cities, Kennewick to be exact. I went to Kennewick High School, and as soon as I got done there, I was going to leave. I was really excited to leave. I was very motivated to leave. First chance I got, you were never going to see me again, basically. And so I went to New Hope Christian College in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. And the reason that I picked that school was definitely not for good reasons looking back. It's not that it wasn't a good reason. It's just like, if you're going to pick a school, maybe like pick it like people pick Princeton and Harvard, like you're doing I don't know. I thought I had it together and I didn't. Looking back, I wish I could have a conversation with myself is what I'm trying to say. I ended up picking the school because in 2017, my mom got invited to speak at a women's conference in Roseburg, Oregon. Roseburg is, I want to say, anywhere from 20 to 35 minutes, depending on traffic. It's really close to Eugene. It's a great little city. So she got asked to speak there, and we went to like a women's weekend conference thing. And on our way back, she was like trying to figure out what I should do with my life, as mothers do. And so she was like, you should go to a Christian college. And she's coming up with all these ideas. And she was like, look up Christian colleges near me. And she said that not thinking about the fact that we were in Oregon. So Siri's going to try and take that as a like where you are now instead of looking in the Tri-Cities, or maybe that was her plan. I don't know. So I go, hey Siri, sorry if I just triggered your phone, but I was like, hey Siri, nearest Christian college is near me. And she brought up a couple, and I clicked the very first one, and it was only like 10 miles. It was like the very next exit. This was during the summer, by the way, so like no one was at the school, but Siri said, hey, there's a Christian college coming up to your right. Do you want to navigate towards it? My mom was like, oh, would you look at that? It's just the next exit. So it must be fate. Let's go. And I was like, oh, okay. And little did I know I'd be walking into the biggest mistake of my life. And I'll get into that a little bit more down the road. But anyway, we ended up taking the exit. We got there, literally nobody was there, like maybe 4 people. There was a couple of staff. There was virtually no students whatsoever. We were like, hey, we're from out of town. We just happened to see you and wanted to take a look, get some information and stuff like that. And so my mom was busy talking to the people. I started to roam around, look around. I was traipsing down like empty halls, and I'm gonna be honest, I was in a really bad place in my life as far as what my future was going to be. I was 17 at the time, and I was just kind of like, I want to do all these things, I want to go to all these places, I want to be this, I want to be that, but I also was like, I don't really know what that means or what I want, and that frustrated me a lot. And I wasn't doing so well in my faith. Like, I was like, I'm living my life, but I'm really not as close to God as I should be, and that was kind of hurting me. I didn't know what to do about it. I was just like, yeah, my faith is lacking and I don't understand myself. This is fun. And so I actually ended up, like, as I was traipsing the halls, and it was like a movie scene, you know, when the main character is at like a palace or something, and there's all those columns and checkered floors, and you're just like there by yourself, and you're like, hello, is anybody here? This is kind of weird. And so that was me. Except these halls were a lot smaller, and there was just a lot of red carpet because the school colors were red, white, and gold. I was going through them, and I was thinking about depression and stuff that I was going through and the faith thing, and I like started to tear up, and then I started like pray, and I was like, God, I need some answers. I didn't feel like I got a response, and then I was like, I'm being emotional, and then I went to go see my mom. I had a weird little I'm trying to be the main character but not even close moment in those hallways, and that's how that went. And I definitely was, you know, looking around, probably looking in places I shouldn't have been, but I was curious, and that's what happened. I went to go find my mom. I found her. We ended up getting information together. The school was like, yes, we want you to come here. We want you here. So they started telling us things like we are accredited, you know, where they told us that they were the most accredited school in the nation, or like amongst the most accredited. And so we brought up Northwest University, which is number 9 in academia. At least it was last time I checked. So I like to refer to Northwest as like a celebrity Christian college. So like you have George Fox University, and then you have Northwest. So like if you're that person and you've got that kind of money, you're attending either one of these schools. And you know, you don't necessarily have to have money to go to the school. You could be just doing work study and getting through it and yada yada yada. Northwest is like a family alum school for me, so you don't have to come from money. I know I said that, but it's like Northwest gets treated kind of like an Ivy League school. I don't think it is, but then again, so does UW, but that's just because Seattle, like, people who are from Seattle ride or die for Seattle. UW is, I don't think it is an Ivy League school, but we act like it is here. So, because we're from Seattle. Anyway, this Northwest is just a really big deal. So when it gets thrown into conversations, people tend to pay attention. In regards to a private Christian college, they have like 2,000 students, and they've been around forever. And so New Hope was like, yeah, we're way more accredited than that huge school. And so we were like, okay, because, you know, you don't really expect people not be telling the truth and whatnot, but they're like, we're more accredited, we can guarantee you work study, we have a creative major program, because I wanted to go for filmmaking. So they had a major that has a really long name that I could never remember, but it was something media, something video, something. And I ended up meeting the professor, who was actually on campus when we were talking to the front desk and getting information. And I actually really vibed with this guy from the jump. Like, he was just, when creatives meet other creatives, you're wondering if the other creative is toxic or trying to use you or is kind of shady. And that's just an assessment you do when networking. And I think it's safe to say it's like that in all avenues of life. Like, if you're a business major and you're trying to make friends with other business people, are they networking with you to use you and get a leg up on you, or like stab you in the back later that year and try to be the better business major? You know, it's petty stuff like that. And unfortunately, that doesn't just stay at the college level. Like, when you become an adult and you go into the world, you are wondering, is the person I'm talking to evil? Basically. This guy was not. He was a genuine creative. He loved the creative atmosphere, and his whole family was a family of creatives, meaning his daughter was like a theater major, and I say major, but she's in high school, or was in high school at the time, so she was a theater kid. His wife taught theater, she sang, she did all the music and plays, and he did all the really technical stuff that I wanted to do, such as video, audio, and we got to talking, and he just seemed like someone I was supposed to know. So that was right off the bat good news for me, and I trusted him immediately. Not like a deep trust. I know that sounds kind of weird, like, why are you trusting men that you've just met like 2 minutes ago. I meant that like I saw him as a good person, like a good creative, like we vibed, you know? I did not catch any toxicity or like I couldn't see him being or using me or doing something malicious in the future, if that makes sense. I liked his vibe, and he genuinely seemed like he wanted to help me grow as a creative and do whatever he could for me. I talked to him, and then we got a tour of like the dorms, and we got a bunch of promises made about like guaranteed work study, gonna help with my finances, what my major would entail, accreditation, and all of that stuff. I went home, and my dad wasn't with us at the time. It was just me and my mom, and so we actually did a not end of school, but spring break of senior year. My dad had heard about this place, so he's like, okay, I would like to go check it out and ask questions. And so we took my dad down there, and they told him the same thing about like accreditation and work study promised and helping me out with my finances, and that they really wanted me here and that they would do anything to have me, you know, there and stuff like that. And so it was all good vibes, you know. We were all like, yay, we all believe in Jesus and we want Holly to go to school here. So it was a very kumbaya party. That's how I would describe that experience. And then we left. We went home. I graduated high school. Then I left in June. School started in end of July, early August. I left in June because I could not wait to leave the Tri-Cities and home. Not because necessarily anything bad was happening to me. I just was very, very ready to leave. And so I did. So I got there in June, and they let me stay in the girls' dorm a lot earlier. I was not the only person there. There was one other girl because all of the athletes also got there in June. So like basketball and volleyball, those were the only sports the college had because it was a small college. So we didn't have literally any of the other sports. I think one person was on the track team and would compete against other schools. And I know that doesn't make sense. Like, how can a track team only have one person? I have no idea. We did not have sports. We had basketball and volleyball, and that was it, which kind of bummed me out because I was like, I don't necessarily like going to football games, but I like having the option to when I'm bored on a Friday and me and the girls can't figure out what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's every high school football game. It's like, it's Friday, we all have no money, and we don't really want to go to the football game, but you know, several people that we know are going to be there, and we don't want to sit at home, so let's go to the high school football game and buy a bunch of concessions that we don't plan on eating and maybe start a food fight in the stands, you know? I was bummed that there was no football because even if I don't want to watch it, I would like to have the option to ignore it. So yeah. And my family's a football family, so I guess there's just that familiarity, nostalgia, and stuff like that I may have been, craving. Anyways, we got home. I can't remember where I was with the story. I'm on the move-in part, sorry. Okay, I moved in June. I was the only one in that dorm other than one other volleyball girl, and then the rest of them arrived, and then the basketball team arrived, and things started to pick up. School is starting soon. I was job hunting and could not find a job for the longest time. Ended up finding a job at KFC, which was actually a really fun job, but also in a horrible part of town that no one should ever go to, but it is what it is. I was a broke college student. School started, and I really missed Washington a lot more than I thought I was going to. I knew I was going to miss Washington because I don't hate our state. I love Washington. I just do not enjoy Eastern Washington. I like Northern Washington. I am from the Everett-Linwood area, so like I say I'm from Linwood, and then I also say I'm from Everett because while living in Linwood, I had a best friend at the time who lived 10 minutes away from downtown Everett, so I did spend a great deal of my childhood in Everett, so I like to think of myself as an Everett kid based out of Linwood. You know the vibes. So yeah, school started, and I really missed my family. I missed Washington, and I was like, I love Oregon. It's beautiful. I'm making friends. Things are cool, but like I just miss my state. And another thing that was kind of going on was there was a lot of favoritism being shown at the school. So when I got there, I did not get work study. My application got denied, and basically what happened was they chose other applicants over me. Interesting enough, something that doesn't get talked enough about but is acknowledged, the picking of applicants was based on not nationality, but very much based on what state you're from. So there was some, I'm gonna say, discrimination. I know it's kind of very hush-hush, and a lot of people know about it, but nobody talks about it because it's just like nobody has the power to stop it, and we're all very aware of who's doing what and who's doing it where, and stuff like that. But basically, opportunities were afforded to you based on what state you were from. I was from Washington, and that is not one of the states that is looked at as one of the states that gets a lot of opportunities. Now you might be thinking, what's wrong with Washington? Absolutely nothing. Other states were just liked better, and by other states I mean one state in particular. I'm not going to name that state because the people that got more opportunities than me who are from this state, I know them, they know me, I'm friends with some of them, so I'm not going to get into it, but everybody who wasn't from that particular state knew that other students were getting opportunities or afforded more help financially or like academically, like your professors paying more close attention to you and you're getting into more clubs and more exclusive things because you're from one state in particular. I'm very used to people discriminating against me, to be honest, so when it happens, I immediately just kind of rework my game plan on how I'm gonna make myself sustainable and how I'm gonna make my future happen, because I've never thought that I was going to be successful with the help of others. Now that thinking has changed, now that I'm older and I'm a little bit more vulnerable and talking to people and, in therapy and blah, 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 but it was very much like I knew I was going to have to do things on my own. It did hurt a little bit, not a little bit, it hurt a lot to hear that work study was promised to me by multiple staff members, only for me to get to the school and say, nope, denied. And my professor wasn't too happy about it. He did everything he could to help, but he also knew that there were a lot of politics involved over who gets what based on very personal criteria, like the state thing. That was the first red flag getting there, was that other people were getting more opportunities than me. And this was like, we had people from Colorado, we had people from Oregon, like the school is from Oregon, and we had Oregonians that were, like Colorado was not a popular state, meaning according to the people that made the decisions, Colorado is not a state that would be getting those opportunities, and neither did Oregon, which was weird because the school is in Oregon. And then we had people from California. California was also not a popular state. And it's not that people had a personal problem with California, Washington, or Colorado. It just wasn't that one state. Therefore, you're just not going to get into this or that or get this opportunity. And then when you didn't get those opportunities and you questioned it, excuse my language, but a bullshit excuse was provided to you. Oh, well, it's because of, max capacity, or it was just a really dumb excuse. And so students that were not afforded as many opportunities would get together and talk about this and be like, hey, we think this is what's going on. And then others would go, yes, I think that's actually what's going on. Then some people would chime in and go, yes, I heard upper management or the staff or people that shouldn't be saying these things say that that's what's, is very, very messy. And I'm just telling you what happened. This is a part of the reason that this school did not work out, and I haven't gone after this school legally, but I started a federal investigation into this school via the Board of Education, which I will get into in a second, and that's how I dealt with it, and I'll tell you why I did that. After I didn't get work study and I wasn't getting opportunities, I was paying $10,000 a semester, and I was working at KFC a lot, and I was trying to keep my grades up, and it was like nobody's helping me financially, even though there was the promise. I don't really agree with the academia. Some of the professors and the staff that were like considered high pastors or like, famous pastors, like people are like, oh, it's that particular pastor, we have to respect them because they've been doing it forever. And there's this sort of godlike thing, but with a pastor that's a human. And so some professors would have like a godlike complex, and I noticed that the majority of the staff, not all of them, like to do this thing where whenever you were trying to make a serious decision, people would say, well, we really think that what God wants for you right now, like if you were thinking about something as simple as getting a job at Lowe's, and they just for some reason did not want you to get a job at Lowe's, and they wanted you to instead work for Walmart. Let's just make a weird situation like that. They would go, well, we really think that God is trying to encourage you to take another look at Walmart, And in this season, it can be really hard, but we just really feel as if though God is saying these things. And so it was very much a bunch of very human people, other sinners and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that you can't be prophetic. I'm just saying don't try to play God on a continued basis and then do other shady things. So that really got to me with the whole every time that you try to make a decision or they wanted to sort of manipulate you into doing something, it was very much, we think that God is wanting you to get a job at Walmart. And usually whatever they were trying to convince you that God wanted was really what they wanted. It was very, very manipulative and wrong. And if you were smart, you kind of got this. But if you're really susceptible, people straight out of high school who have always listened to authority or people over them, that did not end well for them, people in those personality traits. Anyway, my professor that was in the creative arts that I really vibed with, he would continue to constantly go against the grain and kind of, fight the upward hill battle of trying to defend all the creative students, because there was only 3 at the time in that class. So that's how small the school was. There was, I think, less than 100 students. So he would go out on a limb and really try to fight some of the stuff that was morally wrong and just the kind of behavior coming from his own bosses, which I knew was really hard for him. He would get shot down a lot because he would have to play politics in the sense that he needed his peers to like him because he was a professor at that school and an employee. So you can't just come right out and tell your boss that you don't like them. Like, you have to kind of play the field. And so he had to do that, but then he was trying to advocate for us, and it was a very big struggle for him, and I often felt really, really bad because he was trying, but he was also jeopardizing himself, and then he was trying to, be there for his family because his wife was also a professor at that school. His kid was the only one that didn't go to that school, but it was just like his life seemed like a constant nightmare because he was fighting for something and then trying to be an employee and trying to play very deep politics with some of the most toxic people that I've ever met. And not him, but the people that he was trying to fight against. So I didn't get work study, and I'm working a lot and missing my family, and then I didn't have a lot of friends, but that's not because I didn't want to make any. When you're working full time and going to school, every time there was an event, so they'd be like, okay, we're all gonna go to the pumpkin patch because it's fall now, and that's what people do in the fall. And so we'll have a girls only thing where the girls will go down and get pumpkins and have fun, and maybe we'll get a coffee afterwards. And so those things would happen, and I really wanted to go, but I was always working because I was the only one paying for my schooling, and they weren't really at all helping. That was a big factor into why I didn't make friends. The friends that I did make, which were only like about, 2, 3, 4 girls, were also working full time. And the ones that weren't, I saw them sometimes, and then other times I did not. I was really good friends with this graphic designer who also worked as much as I did. Her name was Jen, and we were buddies. Like, we loved being creative together. We loved getting coffee, but she worked as much as I did. So sometimes we got to see each other, and then other times we didn't. Honestly, the only time that I got to hang out with my friends was at 2 a.m. when we all finished our homework. So what my schedule looked like was I had classes from 8 to 3 p.m., which meant that I needed to be at work around 4 or 5 p.m. Work didn't end until around 10 or 12 a.m., 12 a.m. usually, because we were just really busy, understaffed, and some of the staff didn't do their jobs correctly. So I leave work at 12 a.m., which means that I get back to the dorm around 12:30, going on 1, and then I eat like a bowl of cereal for a quick dinner, and then I start on my homework. I get done with my homework at 2 a.m., and sometimes people would study with me in the common area. So homework's done around 2. We kind of hang out for a little bit, or we've been hanging out while doing our homework. So I go to bed around 2:30 a.m. and then I have to wake up at 6 a.m. because devos, which is devotionals, are at 7 a.m. So I didn't go to bed until 2:30 a.m. and then I had to be up at 6. So I only got 4 hours of sleep. So working full time, then doing the school and homework, and it was just a lot. And I got very depressed very quickly. I did nothing creative. I had my creative class, but I just wasn't doing personal projects the way I do now, with Instagram reels and the TikToks I make about film and stuff like that. I wasn't shooting film at the time, but I still like to shoot video and take photos, and my schedule was so busy I couldn't do any of that, and time would pass and I got very, very, very depressed. So that was reason number 2. The school also had really weird rules. So one big rule that they wanted us to keep, they didn't want you to wear any graphics on your shirt. So if you were not an athlete, you can't wear a Nike shirt because it has a Nike swoosh and stuff like that. So ladies, if you had writing on your shirt Jesus before coffee, or a Marilyn Monroe shirt, which is what I'm wearing right now, none of the clothing that you wore at the school could have any graphics on it unless you were an athlete. And this was a really weird rule because I already didn't wear a lot of clothes with graphics, but I had a Puma athletic shirt that was just a breathable shirt, and so it had the Puma logo up on my shoulder, and so I ended up scratching that off the shirt because it was a kind of like an adhesive on there. Sometimes you can scratch the logos off because, after you wear them a while and they go through the washer dryer, they start to peel off. And so that's what I did, was start to peel that stuff off the shirts, because I could not afford to go buy a whole new closet just because it was seen as very bad and against the rules not to wear a shirt with graphics unless you were an athlete, basically. And so it was just little things like that and the way they made decisions that really got to me. I felt that some really bad things were going on there, not so much as I felt as I knew. And so I ended up deciding to leave after that semester, and then I tried to get my friends to leave. I had 2 friends from California who are like really special to me, and I did not want them staying in that environment because they were going through things and bad things were happening to them, and I thought it was very important that they leave for their own mental health and should not be spending time with people like that. And I didn't make them leave. Like, obviously it's their decision. I just brought forth evidence, and we were always talking about some of the things that were happening there, and I was like, hey man, you really need to be taking care of yourself. It's hard to leave a bad situation, but here are the facts. Like, at the end of the semester, I know you're thinking about leaving, let's talk about that. And I'd just be like, hey, I know you're a good person and a moral person, and this is where you're headed and this is where you are, and like, I'm leaving for these reasons, and most of them are in regards to, my health mentally and in regards to faith and yada, yada, yada. And a lot of people ended up leaving. The turnover at the school was really, really high. So even if I didn't talk to my friends or convince them, a lot of the students from my freshman class that entered the school ended up leaving. A lot of people that were from the special state stayed. Just gonna put that out there. And they had no reason to leave, obviously, because they had a little bit more of an edge over other people. I'm not mad at the special state for getting all of the attention and love and stuff like that, because when a school really pays attention to you and tries to help with your finances and offers you special opportunities so that you get better at your academia and you just really soar, start headed towards that glorious future that we all want, I think that's really cool. All schools do this with athletes. They're like, oh, you're an athlete, so you get kind of special treatment, like a first class college experience, and I think that's great when a school does that. Why it was decided on state, I don't know. I mean, I do know, I just can't really get into it without getting too specific, and I'm just telling you my experiences. I'm not on a witch hunt, and I'm not trying to come for people. I'm just telling you part of why I don't go to that school and why I'm not in school anymore. Yeah, the people from the special state stayed, and they are all thriving today. That school pumps a lot of money, time, and energy into them, and they look like they're having fun. They all claim that they are closer to Jesus, and I think that is great. I think that's phenomenal, and some of them I kind of keep in touch with. Not really, because people just kind of fall off after college, but I'm genuinely grateful that they get to have that, even if I don't, because I'm gonna make a way and I'm gonna find my own way. Anyway, I ended up leaving that school, and then afterwards I came home. I moved in. Where did I move in? Yes. My parents lived an hour outside of town, so I moved in with them temporarily until the school year started. Dorms had just been built. This was the local community college in Pasco, so it's called Columbia Basin Community College, or CBC, and for a community college, it's actually a pretty good school. It's not ranked like number 9 or anything in the country. It's not one of those community colleges, but it's affordable. They give you an education. Their academia is not phenomenal or anything kind of out of the ordinary, but it gets the job done. They had just built dorms and they opened them, so I could go. I could afford it. I was paying out of pocket once again, and so that's where I went next to finish up my AA. And I moved in with my college roommate. Her name is Lou. She's also my bestest and dearest friend, just someone that I'm very fond of. I'm very happy I went to CBC, and I actually look back at CBC very fondly because of people like Lou, because we were roommates, and so I actually had a really, really good roommate experience. Not at first. There was 3 of us at first. The third one was actually kind of crazy, and that's a whole story in itself, and maybe I'll talk about roommates in the future. I'm not going to get into that specifically because it doesn't really pertain to what I'm talking about, but Lou and me had a lot of fun. We didn't have classes together or anything. When I came back to my dorm, it was awesome because she was there, and we would just laugh and have fun, and we were kind of joined at the hip in regards to anytime we found out something, some tea on someone, we'd talk about it, and it was really cool, and we needed a PE credit and we wanted to work out together, so we would do that, and it was awesome. It was a great experience. I miss being roommates with her. But anyway, CBC, to get my AA, was going there for I think 2 quarters, which is kind of like a semester. So I was doing that. I think I stayed for 2 quarters a semester. So did Lou. And then Lou ended up going back to New York City, and she got married to a great guy and stuff like that, and finished her schooling elsewhere. I ended up, after that semester, stayed a couple more quarters, but my parents had moved back into town, so they were once again living in Kennewick, and I was like, I can save money if I live with them. So I moved out of the dorms because I didn't want to get a new roommate after Lou, because roommates are a gamble, and I'd had such a good experience with her, and I just wasn't about to try again because I was scared. They let me know who my roommates were going to be after Lou moved back to NYC, and they seemed kind of sus, and so I was like, I'm not doing this, bye. And so I moved in back with my parents, and I think I had some classes on campus, and then I did the majority of them online. This was before Zoom University, so it's like 2019 now. Still, yeah, it's summer, I don't know, it's somewhere in the 2019 year, and because I was at the other place for the winter semester, so it was like 2018 going on 2019. So now we're like into the thick of it, 2019. I was living with my parents, and I was doing all my classes online, and I had a job in the city at like Fast Sign, so it was a vinyl company, and things were fine. Like, I was paying for my classes, I was living at home, I had absolutely no friends except for one, and she happened to be going to the same college I was. We went to high school together, and then she moved to Alaska. She ended up back in Pasco, going to the same community college. And I was walking from one class to another, and she was sitting in a common area waiting for her class to start. And I recognized her, and I was like, dude, is that you? And she was like, yeah. And then we started hanging out again, and it was really cool. And so that was literally the only person that I hung out with outside of my classes. She was still on campus when I was on campus for a little bit, and then I completely switched to being online pretty shortly thereafter. And but we would make plans after or on our free days because we were both working a lot. Needless to say, that second semester, even though it was quarters, I'm going to refer to it as a semester, and you can add up how many quarters that is or whatever. I was living with my parents, which, like, they wanted to be really forward thinking in the sense they were like, we're not really going to be up in your space. You don't necessarily have to, like, do everything we did as a family when I was in high school. They were trying to, like, give me my space and kind of let me be an adult. And I'd say that they did a pretty good job at it, but, like, there's no living at home and discovering yourself. It's not possible because you're going back to what you used to know and not making, new discoveries. My dad had gotten me a really good job in the city, and I was really thankful, and it was quite the setup, and I was very, very unhappy, again, not with them or with anyone specifically. I just was like, isn't there more to life? I used to want so much more. I've been going through all of these traumatic things because when I had started going to CBC, I had put in the transfer from that other school, and the other school that said they were accredited, when I gave my transcripts to a Washington community college, they were like, hey, yeah, according to the national accreditation, this school is not accredited at all, except for maybe in Oregon. But according to, like, the official school reports and how that works, they were like, the place that you were at is not in that library. So it literally looks like you took a gap year, and you will have to start freshman year all over again, even though you've already finished your first semester. And so I reached out to the Oregon school. I reached out to somebody who was a little bit more in power, and I was like, hey, you guys said you were accredited, what's going on? Like, this isn't fair. And somebody reached out back to me and was like, oh shoot, we've been telling staff not to tell people we're fully accredited because we're not. Our bad. I can try and call the current school you're at and we can see what we can do. And that was nothing, basically. And so I had to start from the beginning again. It was really, really, really frustrating. And so I got very upset because I'd spent all this money just to make it look like I have a gap year on my college resume, when indeed I did not. I couldn't use any of those classes, and it was just absolutely infuriating. And I told my parents about it, and they were very disgusted. So basically we wrote out some statements and stuff like that and started a federal investigation under, I forgot what the case is called, but if you go to the FAFSA website, Board of Education, when a school has wronged you or has acted like shadily towards you, there's a bunch of programs depending on how they did it and when they did it that you can try to appeal and tell the Board of Education, hey, these people straight up lied and took my money, like, I need you to do something living here. So what I was trying to do was get a refund from these people since they did not help me at all. So I had my parents write down statements because they were there, and the statements were meaning here's what we were told, here is what happened. I wanted to get statements from some of the professors at the Oregon school, but I had noticed that a lot of the staff that was good had started to drop like flies, and so when they were quitting their jobs, they were kind of getting backlash from it. And so what would happen at the Oregon school is when a professor or a staff member quit their job, they would abruptly leave the state or the city in which that school was, kind of like they were running from something. I don't know what. I noticed that about people kind of exiting that school because of backlash they were receiving in the first place for putting in their resignation. And they didn't put in their resignation always because it was bad. Sometimes like their wife was just pregnant and they were going to focus on family. And so it'd be stuff like that, and they would still get a lot of backlash. And so I couldn't reach out to any of the staff or the professors that were the good ones at that school because these potential witnesses that I wanted to use were leaving the state abruptly and moving to a place no one knew where they were going, or like if I wanted to access someone, that person just sort of disappeared, and it was real shady and I knew why, but it was just like I can't use them for the Board of Education thing. So all I had was my parents and myself, and we did our best. And then 2 years later, Board of Education got back to me and they were like, we've reached a decision, and our decision is that it sounds like a personal problem. Good luck. And then they stopped talking to me. Their official like wording was, there's not enough sufficient evidence. I just needed more. Like I had sufficient evidence. It just seemed like they didn't care, which is why I say it sounds like a personal problem is what they told me. And so I eventually had to drop it and stuff like that. But it's just, I started going to CBC, the community college, and started from the beginning, which was frustrating. And that's part of the reason that I did not like that Oregon school. So anyways, back to living with my parents and having a stable job and doing online classes. I oddly felt like I had given up or maxed out on life. Like I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something or supposed to be dreaming bigger, and I am not. And I feel like I'm giving up on myself weirdly. I'm not trying to, it's just sort of happening. And I feel like I'm stuck in the mud, you know, because I've always wanted to move back to Seattle, you know, the Linwood Everett area, because that's where I'm from. That's what I know. My sister lived up there. My brother at the time lived up there. And it's just like, that's where I'm from when we're stateside. Like part of being from Kenya, East Africa, when people go, where are you from? Like America wise, you know, Northern Washington. And so I started to think about that dream again of moving back and just figuring out everything up there. But I had no one to stay with. No one had any spare rooms. So I didn't really have a lot of money. I didn't know how I was going to get up there. Ended up leaving CBC after the quarter. I took a break for a quarter. So there was a small quarter where I was literally just working and staying at home before going not North Seattle, but Mill Creek area. So I'm in Everett, Mill Creek areas where I live now. And so I joined this church internship, and they found housing for me, which is where I'm currently living now still, even though I'm not in that internship. So I did the internship for a spring. I did it for a year, I think. I don't know. I have such a hard time because depending on where you go, they go by semesters or quarters, or sometimes they do like part A, like I don't know. I got there in the fall and then I stopped after the spring quarter, so I guess I was kind of there for a year. It was a small group of people. It was very intimate and stuff like that. It was a very intimate setting, and got a job at Target and was preparing for the school year to start. I got all moved in with the people I'm staying with, and got that set up. And then about barely a week to 2 weeks before school started, my car broke down twice, which would end up being about $2,000 to fix that I had to put into it. So all the money that I had for school to get started, because they had asked that you have a $750 deposit ready for the entrance fee. So all the money I had set aside for books and to get started at the internship. And it was a church internship. So you intern at the church, and that way you're able to go to, you guessed it, Northwest University, the popular Christian college I was talking about. So instead of just being on regular campus, by doing this church internship, I got to go to Northwest online at not a quarter of the price. I didn't get it as half off, but they took off a pretty significant amount. Looking back, I don't think it was significant enough, just because I did the math, and school is just really expensive. I didn't have that kind of money, but I was trying to make it work, is what I'm saying. And so, yeah, I got moved in, and then my car broke down, and I lost all the money right before school started, and I was enrolled, and FAFSA had gone through. First red flag at this place was the director of the program. He and I were not really friends. I didn't think I did anything. To be honest, I was just trying to figure myself out, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to him, but he paid a lot of attention to me. If I wasn't taking notes, he noticed. If I wasn't sort of acting accordingly, he noticed. And his version of accordingly isn't like a normal people version of stuff. He was a bit of a control freak, and so my being there just was a little difficult for him, to put it that way. Anyway, I ended up going to him about my car breaking down and had to try to have a conversation saying, hey, I know that we have this money that's supposed to be due at this particular date, but I don't have that money. And before I could finish and explain the car situation, he just kind of looked at me in the eyes and said, everyone else can afford to pay it, so you should too. Like, everyone else can afford to be here, so you should too. And then he walked off. Like, he didn't even let me finish, and that made me feel absolutely horrible, because I already didn't have the money, and I did not want to have this hard conversation to begin with, but I knew it was one I had to have. And so for me to like barely get out like 2 words after, I don't have the money in him to say that, I immediately took a sharp left to the women's bathroom that was right across from me, and I cried my little eyes out, because I was like, I'm trying and no one's hearing this. It was a really bad time, because like my car broke down and a bunch of other stuff was happening, and I was trying to get situated in my new life, and things weren't working out, and it was just a struggle, and most of it was coming from the financial side. Not to mention that the day that I moved in with the people that I live with now, I moved in on March 9th. COVID started on March 10th, so now we're in 2020. I moved in the day before Washington declared, like, COVID is a problem, we're shutting down everything. And then I had a job at Target, which meant, boom, now I'm an essential worker. So I'm an essential worker. We're in the middle of the peak of the pandemic, where everyone is at their worst. The hoarding has begun, and all of the horrible, things are happening. I can't afford to pay for school, and I am very much not doing okay mentally. I'm just trying to do my best. So I had that interaction with the director. I ended up having to borrow that money to pay for school, which wasn't great. And so school year began. I don't remember if it was quarters or semesters, so we'll just say school year. One of the things that I do regret looking back on doing this internship, and one of my friends called me out on it, and she was like, you'd probably get further if you were more vulnerable, but you're not. And she didn't mean it in a mean way. She was just like, you're very, like, you have your walls up, and that's very apparent to everyone in the group. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. But honestly, I was like, she's completely right. And I meditated on this for a long time. Like, whenever we would have, like, talking sessions and people would have heart-to-hearts and share with the group, I never did. Not one single time did I, like, ever get real or talk about anything vulnerable. I've thought about this a lot, and I realize now the reason why I did that was because there were 2 people in the group that I did not feel remotely safe with. Not because they were gonna like physically harm me or anything, but like, when you want to talk about your feelings, but the person that's listening isn't someone that should be listening and has the potential to take what you say and possibly use it against you or tell other people, like it'll be a whole thing. So like, you better not like try that. I've had a lot of those mishaps in my past, and so there were 2 people in this group that made me feel that way, and one of them was the director of the program. So every time we'd have these heart-to-hearts, he was always there, because he would sit in as a professor, and we had different people that would come in and teach us and stuff like that, and I appreciated all the heart-to-hearts from other people, but like, I just couldn't speak, and I didn't know why. And then after now everything's said and done, a big part of it was because the director and one other student I was like, I'm not going to tell you 2 about my problems, because I don't trust you and I don't feel safe talking to you. And that's why I encourage people, if you're going to share with someone, you need to feel safe around them. If you don't feel safe sharing or safe with the person you're with to any capacity, whether it be, just physically or like, sharing with them verbally, having a heart-to-heart, get out of there, dude. Like, that's okay. That's completely valid to feel that way. Like, if you don't feel safe, you don't feel safe. And so I didn't share, and people took it as me not wanting to be a part of the group, and it kind of created problems in itself, and there's nothing I could do about that. What's done is done. I understand why it happened. Upon all of that happening, as the year began, I found out that the director had been going around, and mind you, before I tell you what he was doing, when I started this internship, I had a year of college behind me at CBC, so I had to start over, like I was telling you. And so I got pretty far, and I only needed a maybe a semester or a couple more classes to be done with my AA. And so I told them, hey, even though this is a 2-year program, I already have a college history, so I will only be with you guys for maybe a year, maybe less. And they were like, oh yeah, that's fine, yeah, come on in. The director was like, yeah, okay, I understand, great, glad you have a history. But then I got there and he started to get really mad that I was only going to be there for a year instead of the full 2 years. But like, it's not like you can delete your past and be like, oh, I want to get my AA, but I also want to start over again. You know, it's like your college history follows you around. And so I was like, I'm almost done, and that's just how it is. But he was very, very not okay with the fact that I wasn't going to be spending the full 2 years, and he made that known, which was weird because I had sat down with him and made this very clear from the beginning so that there would be no hard feelings, and he pretended to be okay with it, but then became very mad at me when the school year started because I wasn't going to be there the full 2 years. So he started telling people, oh, yeah, Holly's only going to be here for a year, so she's probably not going to make it in life in general. And again, excuse my language, went around telling people that I was not going to amount to shit. That wasn't his exact verbiage, but he was telling people that I wasn't going to make it in life in general. And I was thinking about it, I'm getting a little bit riled. And I found out about that through a friend because we ran in the same circle. Like, we go to the same church, and he's telling people that I'm friends with this information, like, yeah, she's not doing the 2 years, so probably won't live her best life or really make it or go far in life because she didn't do the whole 2 years and she's only doing part of the program. And he had a lot to say that he never said to me, that he was, when someone's bad-mouthing you to your friends, and then your friends are like, hey, I've known about this for a while, and you should probably know what's being said about you by so-and-so. And it just, like, it sucked even more because this person's, like, the authoritative figure in my life, considering that I'm in an internship, and he's talking mad shit about me, literally. Excuse my language, sorry. But, like, it made me very, very enraged. I don't know if I ever addressed it and told him about this, but this just made stuff worse. Throughout the school year, I think the other people in the program knew that me and the director did not really get along, or that they knew that I just wasn't fond of him. And, that's just how it was. But he was doing stuff like that. And then the conversation he had about money, and then he would constantly get on my case because, like, I don't take notes of every single little thing because I find that to be exhausting. I try to only take notes on things that, I think will be relatively helpful. But the people that take so many notes as if they're trying to copy what you said verbatim by the second, that's not the kind of note taking I do. I don't think anybody takes notes like that except for, like, freshmen in high school and newbie freshmen in college. I take big points from here and there, and then I try to summarize it later, or I make enough notes to where I will be okay on, I have my own process is what I'm saying. I'm not constantly just sitting there writing. And so I didn't take notes as much as he wanted me to, I guess, and this bothered him the entire school year. So it was things like that was a problem. And then I think I didn't make enough eye contact during times. I don't understand this one, but this was a complaint that was against me from not just him, but, like, other people, is when we would sit in a circle or whatever. Sometimes I would look out the window because we were getting these beautiful Washington days, and honestly, I wanted to be outside instead of in a classroom. And so every once in a while, I would kind of, like, zone out. I was still listening, or maybe I would look at the floor, but I know I have trouble making eye contact for hours at a time while someone's speaking. I find it hard to do. Other people do it with ease. It's not something that I do entirely well, and even my therapist has noticed this. But it was stuff like that I would get, like, called out for or written up for. Not written up with disciplinary actions in mind, but, like, this is one of the things you do that bothers everyone, not the other kids in the group, but, like, the director and our stand-in professors that are teaching us about stuff. And so I was like, that's a weird complaint. Okay, I don't know what to do about that, The year progressed and stuff like that, and we started my last semester, so I was getting really close to getting my degree. I was still having all of these problems. I was having trouble fitting in because I didn't feel like I could talk or be vulnerable. I wanted to, just didn't feel safe, so it was not going to happen. Other people thought that I didn't want to be in the group or that I didn't like them in particularly, and I'm very sorry that people felt that way. It was not my intention to come off like that. I had my own issues that I was dealing with that I've since then actually dealt with a lot more in depth now that I'm in counseling. But that's just what was happening. And so we come up on my last semester, and basically I had a speech class and an American literature class. I was almost done, and I was like, great, I just have to do the home stretch. I had just made the dean's list, and I had finished the last school year with a 3.6 GPA. I took 2 finals, and I aced the first one, like, it was out of 268 points, and I got 268 out of 268. And then on my other final, I I was like 2 points down, so I didn't get a exact A. I was 2 points off from getting a perfect score, and that's how I ended my classes. Like, I was doing really well. Me and one other girl from the internship were the only ones that made the dean's list from that program, and I was feeling pretty good. And then we started my last semester, meaning I was almost done with school, and started my classes. I had gotten a different job at Mod Pizza, and things were still really busy because I'm doing an internship, I'm in school, and I'm employed. So I'm doing 3 things that are full-time jobs in itself. And so I started the year telling my teachers that, hey, I'm in an internship, employed, and, doing school, and this is what my workload looks like. If you could just have some patience with me, because even though it was a semester, all of our classes were condensed because they wanted you to finish faster. So we were taking in a lot of content and homework and information in very little time and expected to do well. And so far, this hadn't been a problem for me. It's a little unrealistic looking back, but I had reached out to some of my professors to let them know that, like, hey, I'm falling behind, and it's because of the condensed semester and all the information being thrown at us. And they were like, yeah, we know it's a condensed semester and it's a lot of information, but you signed up for school, so this is kind of your fault, was the response I got. So one of the responses that I literally got was from my American literature teacher. She was like, well, when I was your age and pursuing my master's, I was married and I had kids and I was in school. And then she said a couple of other things, and she was like, and I did fine, so you should just figure out how to delegate your time, because if I can do it, you can do it. I did not like this response because here's the difference. 1, she was pursuing her master's. 2, she was raising a family, so that means she had a spouse for help when things were, like, kind of heavy as far as her load. Like, she had help. It's just like, that's a totally different situation than mine. And she was trying to directly compare us and be like, I did this, so you should be able to. Mind you, she was also an elderly woman professor, so she was in college, I want to say well before the 60s, so a little bit before. Like, she was old, like, when she was in school, it was a very different time, and she had been teaching forever, but she was just like trying to directly compare situations, and that's not how life works. You do not directly compare everyone's situation to everyone, just like the director did with the everyone else can pay, so you can too. That's not how life works. We come from all walks of life, all different types of situations. People that think like that have a fixed mindset, and to be honest, I think there's something entirely wrong with them. But that is just how she acted, so I ended up dropping that class immediately because I was like, well, I don't have the time, and you're not willing to accommodate me. Like, not a whole lot. I wasn't looking for special privileges, just a little bit of help, and she was very mad that I asked, so I just dropped the class entirely and decided, okay, I'll just take it next semester, and it'll just be an extra class where I can take it in the summer. And then, so I only was taking 1 class, and it was speech. This was right when I was considering dropping out of school altogether because I couldn't figure out why I was doing it anymore. Meaning, I was doing it because I thought it was the right thing to do, and society expects you to go to college, and I was doing it because I thought it made my parents look good and stuff like that, but I was not doing it for me. I was back in Northern Washington, which made me happy. I liked where I was living, but just school in general has kind of always been difficult for me. Not the academia, just the concept itself. And so I was strongly considering just kind of leaving school because honestly, I could not afford it. It was costing me a fortune, and that was a big decider as well. I was like, maybe I should just stop and strike out on my own. My creative stuff is working out in the sense that I'm starting to do that again, and I actually have confidence in myself that I can turn that into something lucrative, so maybe I should just stop this and strike out on my own. I have a really good job. I'm almost a manager, yada, yada, yada. My friends at work are great. And so I was like, do I really need to do the school thing? And I'm not a quitter, so I was not about to just up and quit my speech class. And so I kept doing it, but I don't know, red flags started to pop up really quickly because he kind of was really condescending, and we're still in the Zoom age. So like, I'm taking a speech class and it's not even in person. We're taking videos of ourselves in our room, and then we're uploading them to YouTube, and then the professor looks at it. We don't even like upload it to like the classroom. We're making YouTube videos that are really kind of like, and he just watches them and he's like, this is what you did wrong. And it just felt very hands off because I don't really think it's possible to do such a hands-on class like speech online. So this was one of the problems with Zoom during the pandemic. But nevertheless, I was like, I'm just going to finish this semester and call it even. So I, told my person, that my coordinator, hey, after the semester I'm done, but I'm just going to finish my speech class. And she was like, okay, cool. We'll put that in the notes to not renew your coming back. And so I kept going and doing my speech class, and then he kept being very condescending and giving me backhanded comments. And these comments weren't like, hey, you need to be paying attention more. They were very personal attacks, kind of. And I figured, whatever, maybe the professor's just going through something, because your boy is 25 or 30 years old. He is like 5 years older than me, maybe, if that, and he's critiquing me, and he was just getting personal with the attacks. And so I figured maybe he's just going through something. Maybe this is a disgruntled millennial coming after a Gen Zer. I don't know. I didn't care. I have work to do. I have so much more to worry about. If this guy wants to get super personal, let him. But then one day he said something that just got to me, and there was no getting past it. I had uploaded something, and I would take all his revisions and his commentary that he would give me, and I would try to apply them to get better, because he was like, I want you to do this instead of this. And so I would take that into, account. And on the very last time that I did, he came back with, hey, your biggest problem in this class is when you speak, and let me pull it up because I wrote it up verbatim in my notes, but he said, you lack emotion and imagination when speaking. And that I don't understand. To be honest, I really don't think that was appropriate, if I'm being completely honest. He was just like, you lack emotion and imagination while speaking. And so I had just been trying to get ahead here and do my best, and I was taking all these hits that he was giving me. And for what? He just kept doing that, and I got so frustrated. And so I was like, you know what? If that's the case, if you think that I'm that bad at public speaking, then fine. So what I did was, I looked at that video that with his commentary, because he would upload videos and tell us what we did wrong. This wasn't like in text, like he would look at the webcam, so he's looking at me as he says this, yada yada yada, and he was just like, you're bad at public speaking and blah 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 blah. And so I was like, if that's the case, then there's really no reason for me to finish this semester. So I went to the online dashboard, I logged out of everything. The semester did not end for like a couple more weeks, but I didn't finish my last semester of college, which is really unlike me, because I was like, it's good to finish, so I will finish. My American literature did that comparison thing, and then my English teacher was like just coming for my throat. And so I decided, and I'm gonna be blunt here, but fuck it. Like, I'm gone. See ya. This is how you guys feel like I'm not good enough. I'm peacing out. Goodbye. I do not need you in my life. I was only here as, trying to finish as a courtesy because it's the right thing to do, but like, I'm done. You pushed me too far. And the reason I took his comment about when I speak, I lack emotion, imagination, is because I've been speaking ever since I was a little girl. I'm from a missionary family. So when I was 6, I told my testimony and stuff like that, as I had done so many times before. And I actually received a standing ovation of about 1,200 people. So I have spoken everywhere you can imagine. I have spoken overseas. I've spoken in France. I've spoken in London. I've spoken in Kenya, East Africa. I have spoken in, I want to say, 46 to 48 states when we did our tour trying to raise money. And that's all when I was little and stuff like that. I'm very comfortable speaking in public. And I'm not saying that to say that I'm better than him or anything, but the way that he would talk to me was a lot uncalled for. And I was just done with it. It's like, you're telling me that I'm bad at the one thing that I've been doing my whole life. And even though you think I'm bad at it, the masses seem to disagree with you, if that makes sense. And maybe that might have been a little cocky or prideful, but like, that's just what was happening. That is when I exited the internship at Northwest University. So I stopped going to the internship, and I told him, adios amigo. And he was like, honestly, I think the director was a bit relieved when I quit, because he was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to like deal with her anymore. Because like when I left, it just seemed like a weight had fallen off of him. And likewise, because I didn't like you either, buddy. And then I logged out of my school stuff. The semester ended. I never checked my final grades. I still have no idea what they are till this day. I'm sure it says incomplete or something. That'll be on my record, which is not a good thing, but it's like that ending. I was like, I'm out. I'm so done being treated like this by everyone. And I know that I have problems. I know that I can be hard to deal with, but I constantly try. If you give me feedback like, Holly, you're doing this, this, and this, and you're not supposed to, or let's talk about this, I will talk with you, Like, I'm trying. I feel as though I'm putting forth a lot of effort, even though, it can be hard to get along with other people, and the other people are just coming for me. So I'm like, whatever, I'm leaving. I'm not doing this anymore. I'll figure it out by myself. And so that ends my entire college history as I remember it. Now for a little commentary on like, should you go to school or not? as you've heard, I had some pretty negative experiences overall with college. And to be honest, I think that some people just aren't meant to go to college, and then others need to go to college. I think that everyone should experience college a little bit, once in their life, like maybe take a class, figure out what's best for you, because college does teach people how to get along with other people. It exposes you to new experiences, and if not for the academia, do it for the social part, because you learn who you are as a person, and that's really important. So I would hope that, you try a quarter, try a semester, or maybe take 1 or 2 classes and then be like, okay, so that's what that's about, because it's a part of figuring yourself out. And even if it ends up being traumatic, hey, you did it, you got through it, you learned something. And that's how I look at my college experience. Whenever people kind of hit me with the conversation, should I go to college or nah? It just depends on where you're at. It depends on where you're going and what you're doing. If you're trying to be a neurosurgeon, you should go to college, okay? There is no getting out of college for you. Nobody wants you working on their brain if you didn't go through a lot of college. If you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be somebody that's got other people's, lives in your hands, you need to go to college. You have to. You can't be like, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon and I'm going to do it via YouTube tutorials. Absolutely not. You're going to college. No questions asked. And if you can't make it in med school and they cut you, either pick a different part of the medical field or just drop the medical field altogether, because you have to ace that shit, dude. Because if you don't know what you're doing in the medical, it's a neurosurgeon, it's a doctor, you have to know your stuff. And with that being said, that's why you should go to college in those avenues. But I do a lot of photography with me specializing in video is how I explain that. So I do photography but specialize in video, and now more recently I do a lot of analog and film photography. Someone like me, does not need to go to college. It is not absolutely pertinent to my future. I think I used that word wrong. Okay, well, maybe I do need to go to college. To rephrase what I'm trying to say, it's not absolutely detrimental for somebody like me to go to university who's, pursuing creative. That doesn't make any sense. Whereas I have friends that are like, I want to start a business or be a business major. So, they kind of need to go to college. You can start a business not having gone to college, but the stuff that they've told me, they just would like to go to college. But if you're confident that you can do the whole business thing without college, and, okay, good for you. And again, that's knowing who you are, analyzing and figuring out where you're at. I hope that makes sense. But I don't think that college is endgame. If you don't go to college, you're just not successful. I know that I've taken a break here and there. I just worked for a little bit and then went back, and I did that just to gain some perspective and see if school was really what I wanted to do. And now I'm not in school, and I'm very aware that some of my friends and other counterparts legitimately think of me as a failure. When they talk about me with other people, I'm aware that they're like, oh yeah, Holly, she's not in school anymore. She's probably not going to make it in life. She'll probably end up a bum or stay working at a minimum 9-to-5 job until she's 60, and she's not really going to go far or make any money or kind of become a successful person because she's not in college anymore. And some people have the audacity to tell me that to my face, and that's interesting, but a lot of them say it behind my back and then it gets back to me. Either way, I don't care. If that's what you really think, okay, cool. I'm gonna have fun proving you wrong. I'm aware that people pity me because I'm not in school anymore, and that's okay. Because some people are actually satisfied with a 9-to-5 office job. I'm not saying I am. I am not. I am absolutely not. But right now, in this current climate, literally where I'm at, post nervous breakdown and everything that's happened, I'm doing well. My creative was thriving. I haven't been doing anything because I actually got COVID, so that's why I sound really nasally and why I'm stumbling over my words and stuff like that, because one, this is a kind of an impromptu episode that I didn't plan really well for, because I just wanted to lay it on you. This is what college was like. Good luck. But I recently got a positive test for COVID, and so I have been held up in my room since almost 2 weeks ago. So I got the positive test on September the 1st, and so I can't stop quarantining until 9/11 is when the doctor said that would be okay to completely stop. However, the public health people were on the 7th, depending on how you feel, you may leave and not infect any other individuals. But other than that, I've been strictly quarantining because I would not wish this disease on my worst enemy. It has been absolutely horrible. It's imagine every sickness that you've ever gotten, but combined into one. I could barely taste. I've posted a little bit about it on social media. I couldn't taste my Doritos, which nearly made me cry because it's freaking Doritos. Like, I love Doritos and I couldn't taste them. And so, yeah, I've been stuck with my roommate who, sorry, I'm starting to sound really nasally again. Anyway, I've been trapped in the house with my roommate who can't taste at all. So she like can't taste coffee, and so she hasn't been drinking it. It's been a whole ordeal, very congested, headaches and body aches, sore throat, and I'm very happy for it to be over. Yeah, that's been my COVID experience. And now you know what my college experience is. If you think that you can get through life without college, do the research, do the work, be confident in yourself, and go get that ish done, okay? If you think that you need more structure, more exposure to new experiences via the campus life and going to school, if you know you need people telling you what to do, meaning this is when this is due, this is what you have to do on Wednesday, and this is what you need to be doing on Monday, some people are aware that they just need a lot of structure, and so they stay in school. And if you know that about yourself, it's not a bad thing if you need structure. It's actually really cool that you know that about yourself. So if you know that, stay in school and pick that avenue. If you know that you want to be working under someone because you like people kind of giving you direction, do that. It's very insightful and mature and wise for anyone who knows that they need that. But if you're kind of a loose cannon like myself, very unpredictable and a bit crazy and doesn't like to listen to other people, you know, I can be very stubborn, and I know that about myself, and I'm working on it. But if you're like me and you're just kind of like a wild card who's like, I am gonna do this to the best of my ability, and I'm gonna do it without the haters and only with, you know, my friends and loved ones, then do that, okay? Be your own Elon Musk, or be whoever stayed in school and did a good job, you know? Be the main character, dude. That's what this season's about. Like, we're coming out of COVID. Be the main character. And you might think, oh, but the main character is like really random and more like Holly. No. Your main character is who you are. So be you. If your main character is a very structured person, that's what the main character is, dude. But be it, you know? Show up as the person that you want to be. Something that I've been doing recently is trying to show up as her. Who is her? Her is my future self that is very well put together and doing well in life. So like, she's reading 2 hours before bed and then reading in the mornings as soon as she wakes up, and she's eating a lot healthier, practicing guitar, starting collaborations with like brands via her creative outlet. Like, she's just living the most healthy, you know, I'm manifesting this for myself basically, but I'm trying to show up as her, and I'm slowly defining what it means to be her, because right now I'm me, but I hope that makes sense. Show up as who you want to be. I know this was a lot and very much all over the place, but I honest to God hope that it helped in some capacity, some way. I hope it helps with your decision, your future decisions. Do not base your sole decision on should I go to college via a podcast episode named Why I Dropped Out of University. Don't do that. Do some research, talk to people, get opinions, know yourself, or continue to figure out yourself, and do that. I wish you the best of luck. I know that whatever you pick is the right choice and that it'll get you very far. And I'm very proud of you for doing whatever it is you chose. Proud of you for doing you in this current moment. So good job, little pat on the back. Go get yourself a pumpkin spice latte as a reward, because they are out now, baby. It is officially fall. I'm very happy that that's back, even though I haven't had one in 2 weeks because, you know, quarantine, but I will get one as soon as I get out of jail. So, all right, I'm gonna end the episode here. You've heard me talk for long enough. I love you. Bye.